Greetings everyone, my name is Yggdrasil, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Make a Good Mega Man Level Contest 2, or Magmal 2 for short. During the last part, I completed Tier 1, defeated its boss, and moved on to Tier 2. However, in between this and the previous part, I got a note where I need to follow up on it at the chateau nearby. Normally, I would have visited it after completing Tier 2, but I can't continue on towards Tier 2, so I'll pay a visit to it right now. Now, the chateau, or however you pronounce it, this is a place where you can unlock several neat features as you collect more and more Nobel Nickels, as evidenced by the sign outside saying, "I love Nobel Nickels." And here is the person, or robot, who left that note at the entrance of Dr. Light's lab. We always teleport back into Dr. Light's lab when we get back into the game, I believe. That's a mysterious song. I wonder what info he wants to give. I'm suspicious that he's like a third party or something. After all, I deliberately made myself out of the know for the plot of this game, whatever the plot there is. And yeah, the teleporters can mess with reality, and you can bring things outside of it as evidenced by the energy elements, as well as the Nobel Nickels, the E-tanks, M-tanks, bolts, etc. If you could make a stage that's a farmland with a lot of food, you can potentially create infinite food. Then again, what are the energy costs for running these teleporters? That's quite an interesting set of questions, actually. In a more serious game outside of classic Mega Man, that would be quite interesting to speculate. Yeah, like Dr. Wily, or any other set of mad scientists. Well, at least for this conversation we get an E-tank. Alright then. That was a little bit of an odd encounter. But judging by the game, I suppose we will encounter the mysterious benefactor in the future. Well, let's talk with Nightman. Yep, those are Nobel Nickels. I've been collecting quite a few of them across Tier 1 and Tier 2. And as we collect more and more Nobel Nickels, we'll unlock some new features and items from Nightman, but we gotta talk to Nightman to see whether we have enough Nobel Nickels to get the next item. At least Nightman will tell us how many Nobel Nickels we need to collect the next item. Like in this case, we need to have 10 Nobel Nickels. But unfortunately, we only collected one. The one being the one from Tier 1, the only one in fact. Oh, hello, Milk. Of course, whatever its speech patterns are unintelligible. And I suppose we'll be unlocking more and more people in this chateau or cafe as we collect more energy elements and defeat tier bosses. Oh, and by the way, pressing 2 on the keyboard is a debug command to commit suicide, so it'll instantly kill Mega Man. Oh yeah, and that's also a reference to the creator of Yokuman. The creator of Yokuman, who made it originally from Mega Man Unlimited, made Yokuman a public domain character so he can be used in any Mega Man fan game. Okay, let's see the crystal. Sure, let's give it. Jump to pay, shoot to exit. Although I wish that it was a little bit more... it was more highlighted. So what does it say? No thanks. This is basically giving you hints as to where the locations of Nobel Nickels and energy elements are, I think, in various stages. Well, nice reference to craft beer. And it's quite funny that it's called Shameless Plug Man. We've done enough in this cafe, so let's actually return to Tier 2. We spent enough time here. After all, you already probably know what the highlight of this video will be. Remember what I said earlier of how I can't really predict how long some of the videos will be, or how many levels will be covered in each, because I don't know how difficult or frustrating some will be. You may have already realized what the next stage will be coming up is, and I have been dreading it for quite a while. I almost forgot it was in Tier 2, but, well, here it is. In 72nd place is Yggdrasil by Zatsupachi, or I'll call them Zat, with a score of 15.2, but the main notable thing is that it's Ace Sparks and Angel's least favorite stages. This is the stage with the most number of judges who hate it, and it's become quite infamous in Magmal 2 for several reasons. And as the title suggests, this is a reference to the immense mythical world tree that connects the 9 worlds in Norse cosmology. Well, thank you, Woodman. Well, I guess this part will cover the entirety of Yggdrasil, because I will be showing off all the parts, or at least all the segments and different pathways for the stage, because I'm feeling a bit masochistic today. There are 3 exits and 3 bosses of the stage. In fact, this is the first stage in the order we've covered so far that actually has custom boss fights. The first contestant stage. And as you can see here, it has a skip teleporter because of how long and frustrating and badly designed it is, and I will be commenting on the problems of this stage's design. If there is one stage I strongly suggest you skip, it's this one, especially because of how long it is. Or at the very least, take one path and then use a skip teleporter for the remaining 2 paths. We have a unique background in the behind over there, and we have grey tile sets. I'll explain more how it's working once we get to the split pathways. Over here, we're introduced to the 3 bosses of the stage. And once you walk into them, we get into a cutscene which was custom made. I believe it was sped up a bit in comparison to the first run too. So it's introducing what these 3 OCs made by Zat are trying to do. I'm not sure what it's referencing exactly, but I'm not sure what the base source material is. I get the feeling it's connected to that in some way. Something about dimensional travel and using this world tree location in order to teleport or something. And we're held in mid-air for some reason. We have access to all special weapons. Oh boy. I think I glitched out the pause menu. Oops. That's not a good sign. Let me try this again. Yeah, for some reason I glitched out the pause menu where, even if I was in mid-air when doing the pause, it didn't fully freeze me. Let's hope that doesn't happen again. And of course you can also skip it by pressing the jump button, thankfully. Oh no. Okay, the cutscene code of this stage kind of broke the pause button. Never mind, it was only in that screen, thank goodness, that would really broken the stage. Now, there are 3 main pathways of this stage, each with their own gimmicks and enemy types, mainly gimmicks. Those colors being blue, green, and pink. I will be showcasing each of the pathways as well as where they link up to each other, because there are quite a bit of linkage points, and this is one of the larger stages in the game. I'm going to be starting out with the green pathway, whose main gimmick is the yoga blocks. So we gotta be a bit careful here and make the jumps. Fair enough. I do like the more starry background, but the main thing that makes this stage a little bit more frustrating is the fact that, well, as you can see here, the screen warps around as we travel through each of the screens, which is fine, which I find fine, but the problem is the screen warping isn't really taught well. This was more my fault because I should have paid attention to the ladder position. But the main problem is that this screen warping gimmick is used inconsistently throughout the stage, as I'll show soon enough. Here it's fine, but you'll see later what I'm talking about. But thankfully we have access to all the special weapons, so if we get into a bind we can always use them. And of course, because of the tile set used here, it can be a little bit difficult figuring out where each of the collision detection is. This isn't even the worst part of the stage, this is just me screwing up. I get the main idea of this stage, and it has some pretty nice ideas about the screen looping, each pathway having their own gimmicks, and looping into each other to increase replayability. That's fine with me. The problem is that the gimmicks aren't being introduced in a proper fashion. Sure, they're introduced in a safe environment first, but then the problem is it goes from 0 to 100 in terms of difficulty. If this was Mega Maker, that would have insta-gipped me, but thankfully it didn't. You're gonna see a lot of deaths in this stage, that's for sure. There we go. Got it this time. You gotta be a little bit careful because of the spikes though. And the collision hitboxes, as I mentioned, can be a bit finicky because of the positioning. Here's the other problem with this stage. Enemies here are pretty extreme in terms of the power they have. You see all the projectiles being fired everywhere. The other problem is that they fire the projectiles in random arcs. So it can be really hard to hit them properly. Now, here's where one of the pathways loop up with each other, where we can instead move on to the pink pathway. I'll come back to this once I decide to take the pink pathway, so if you want to keep on the green pathway, keep going down. That's one nice thing about the stage, having looping paths. Okay, let's try this challenge again, shall we? This isn't too bad, you just need to pay attention to it. But oh boy, we'll be getting to much harder challenges in the future. Also, here's one instance what I was talking about. Normally you would think there'd be screen looping over there because it was introduced earlier in the green segment, but no, there's no screen looping over there, meaning that there's an inconsistency of the gimmicks being used. Now, if there was a visual indicator showcasing that there's looping in some way, I would be fine with the stage. Yeah, you have to go left here. And now you have to follow the block trail in order to survive, I suppose. And get to the left side of the screen. And suddenly get killed over there for no apparent reason. Okay, I guess this is how you're supposed to go through this segment. I think I broke it slightly though. Well, thank you for the smiley face, but what I really like is an M-tank. By the way, stuff is despawning or spawning off screen, so you gotta be careful. And there is a checkpoint here, I think. So let's take the bottom pathway, see what it leads up to. Never mind. That was spikes. Yeah, it can also be a little bit difficult to discern where the spikes are, also because of the hitbox not being exactly aligned. You have to go to the right over there in order to survive. And another place where you can get trapped. This is one of the more annoying Yoku Block segments. See, I'm okay with the initial introduction to Yoku Blocks, but then it goes to 0 to 100 in terms of difficulty, as you can see here, and then we have to do some off-screen blind jumps. And as you can see over there, we can end up just shimmying through the platforms for some reason. Also, more dangerous enemies. Let's go down over here and see where it leads up to. And this is actually a teleporter to take us between the different parts of the stage. Like, this takes us to the green, another part of the green pathway. Yeah, that takes us to, I believe, to the opposite side of the stage. Although I can't really show it off without a certain upgrade, which I'll get after collecting 100 energy elements or so. But for this, I believe we'll be able to more easily access the blue pathway. Oh, and by the way, this upper pathway will lead us to the pink pathway, or if we want to go to the green pathway from the pink one, we can climb down that way. There's another set of extremely powerful enemies. The problem with these enemies is they're super durable, and they randomly fire projectiles everywhere. But alas, we're finally at the first boss fight. Or rather, I'm gonna kill myself over here because I need the full health. Exacerbating the problems about the stage is the boss fights too. They also have a lot of problems. You saw earlier the problem just in the screen pathway alone. We had a nice introduction of the screen looping as well as the yoga blocks, but the problem is though they were used inconsistently in the part of the screen looping as you saw there. And the yoga block segment became super hard too quickly. Also, the enemies are way too difficult for Mega Man to face, and it's almost impossible to get by them damage only, or without taking any damage, and you're forced to use special weapons. Even then, you can still take a hit without using something like the Jewel Satellite. So it's time to face the first boss, Cream. I believe she's the easiest boss to fight, but we'll see. Also, another thing is that the bosses all actually have more than one health bar. She's weakest against the Mega Buster, thankfully. And her pattern is a little bit random though, unfortunately, especially when she decides to fire all those charge shots. I defeated Cream and completed the green pathway of Yggdrasil. But oh no, the stage isn't over yet, far from it. We have 2 more pathways to go through. So let's get right to it. Not to mention, I will be showing off where the pathways rejoin up with each other, or at least a few places where they rejoin up with each other. Most players are either going to skip the stage or just going to go with the pathways immediately. I don't blame them. You already saw the problems of this stage with the Yoku Block segment, but oh no, there is some worse coming up. There's a reason why I took the green pathway first. The blue pathway's gimmick, on the other hand, are force beams. Yeah, we're going onto that realm now. It's not too bad here to introduce fine, but as you'll see soon enough, in combination with the inconsistent screen looping, things are going to get really bad fast, like here. Here the screen looping is fine, it's being introduced in a fair fashion. What was going to happen in the previous room, as you may have heard, is that if I wasn't fast enough going past that Devil Joe, you would be instigated by all those force beams rushing you. That's not a fine screen for introducing force beams, or a second screen. That's one of the main flaws for the stage. Also the fact that gimmicks are being used inconsistently at the screen looping. You gotta be really fast here so you don't get killed by the force beams. There was nothing to tell me that the force beam would have spawned out of this block. It could have spawned out of the right block over here off screen. The same with the screen looping, which is used inconsistently. Like here, you're supposed to rush forward, otherwise you'll get killed by the force beams. Same with over here. Thankfully, we have the flash stopper in order to freeze the force beams, but you gotta be careful. I'm gonna take the right pathway here. I believe there's a pathway going down over there, but I will take a look later. And more of these enemies. The best weapon I would say of this stage is use aiming weapons, or just use the flash stopper to stop these crazy enemies. Really, the enemy that isn't the worst in terms of being overpowered are those greenish hotheads. Alright, here's one of the alternate pathways. This leads up to the pink pathway. From blue to pink, or pink to blue. This screen is fine because you can at least get acclimated to it. In this room, for example. You gotta be really quick in order to pass. Okay, this is fine too, but as you can see, you would think you were supposed to go down over there, but no, you just die. Thankfully, there is a checkpoint over here, so I do appreciate it. That's good checkpoint placement, especially as players may get confused. No, you go left here. So slide down here, then you fall down here. You would think there'd be screen looping instead. A little bit inconsistent there. Well, I say little bit, but it's happening everywhere. You have to loop up to the room over here. If there's one thing I'd like to improve with this stage, put visual indicators or mirrors or something to indicate where the screen will loop from. Also, please make enemies less overpowered and broken. Thank you. How are we supposed to get through here? I can't. I ended up screwing it up because I wasn't fast enough. The force beam placements can also be really obnoxious, as you saw there, especially if you're going through it for the first time, which is another bane against the stage. That's why it's also become one of the more memey or infamous levels of this competition. Similar to how the worst stage, the quickening, and City War became meme levels or infamous levels for Magma 1, it was bound to happen. Every competition will have one of these. Okay, blast stopper time. So fall down here, make the jump, and then you can proceed onwards. I believe there's an alternate way of doing this, but this is the way I find to work most. Unfortunately, I don't have an M tank, so this is going to be a little bit of a problem to go through, especially if I run out of energy. I'm probably just repeating my points over and over just to illustrate how bad this stage is. And at least the level author was generous enough to actually put a Yashiki or Yashiki, or whatever the item that refills all of your health and weapons is called. Think of this as a lesson of what not to do, but the sad thing is this is one of those levels that actually had some effort put into it. It's just that the overall design is poor. Sorry Zat, maybe you can improve in the future. At least that Yashiki actually respawns every time you die. At least by freezing that, I can move on forward. I don't want to take any risks, I'm running. And here's where the pathways loop up. Remember this teleporter I took earlier? This is actually the bottommost part of the stage and will take us to the green pathway, whereas if we go into this teleport it'll take us to the blue pathway. That way we can easily access the respective boss fights. But of course, we don't have access to the pink pathway just yet, but we can potentially access the pink pathway by taking this lower route. Or of course, if we took the pink pathway earlier from the earlier part of the blue pathway, we can go back up to the blue pathway through this path. I will give credit to the author for having these teleporters to make traversing the stage a bit easier. But as I said, the main suggestion I would have for going through the stage, bring one or more M-tanks. Alright, next up is Krator. I believe it's kind of expected you're supposed to have defeated Cream first, as evidenced by Krator's talks. And he's even more broken than Cream is. I would say he's the second hardest boss fight. And he randomly attacks everywhere, and just look at how much contact damage he has, yikes. Mind you, this is not an extra boss, this is mandatory for actually getting the exit for the stage. It's not like Joman R, which we'll see later on in the game, where you can find a much harder alternate boss fight for a Nobel Nickel, which is what they're supposed to be for. So I will showcase this boss fight one more time, and then I'll just use my special weapons. If the boss didn't deal that much contact damage, I'll be fine, but because it does, that's what makes this boss fight really broken. Also the fact that he has so much health. Well, I have enough E-tanks, so I might as well use them. Also, he can deflect your shots using his saber. Yeah, you just saw over there. Any melee attack like that one, 14 points of damage, and he doesn't really give enough of a tell. In some ways, I would say he's the worst boss out of the three. I don't remember what his weakness is, so I'll just spam special weapons. Oh yeah, and his weakness is the triple blade, thankfully. Really, the main problem with this boss is the fact his extreme contact damage without having a tell, his random patterns, and the fact he has too much health. If he had about 24 or 28 bars of health, and the contact damage was much lower, and he actually gave more tells for his attacks, it'd be fine. Because of that, he's a worse boss than Cream is. Though, judging by the comments, it's expected that you're supposed to fight him the second. So with that, there's only one more pathway left, the pink pathway. I'll skip ahead to the entrance. Alright, here's the first split pathway from the top side, that being the blue pathway to the pink pathway. So let's enter this pink pathway and see what horrors lie beyond. Okay, we have screen looping just like before. Nothing too bad so far, but we'll see soon enough how bad it gets. Based off of the enemies and bosses, this is supposed to be the hardest pathway. Especially as we'll see soon enough with the boss fight. I remember more about the boss fights more than the stage, that's for sure. This is harder especially because of the annoying placement of enemies, as you can see. And considering how durable they are, it makes them even worse. At least the Hornet Chaser is really effective. And by the way, those are bottomless pits as well. Now time to travel downwards. Gotta be a little bit careful because I believe there is a spike drop somewhere. Oh yeah, and by the way, there's the entrance to the boss gate. But before I go there, I'm gonna be showcasing the bottom pathway. See, here are the spikes I was talking about, you gotta be careful of. By the way, off screen I'm editing out half the deaths, so I'm already going to be removing 12 deaths. Here it's fine to start falling, and over here if you go to the right we'll be entering the boss gate for the boss fight, but as I said I want to explore where the green pathway loops up with this one, so I'll go down here. And of course, if you haven't fought the green boss fight, that being the boss fight against Cream, you can just follow these Doku blocks downward to reach it. But be careful, this is a lot more dangerous falling downwards I believe, or at least that's how I feel, especially because of all the spikes. As you can see over there. And this is where the green pathway loops up with the pink one, or rather, where you would actually get there to reach the pink pathway. And here's the teleporter, of course, just like before. I do like the general idea of the stage, there being 3 pathways, each with their own unique gimmicks, some being harder than the other, and the fact they loop up with each other, so in case you don't like one pathway you can go to another, but the overall execution is horrible. It's not like the levels in Tier 1 which were either plagiarized or had no effort put into them, more so of the latter. But here, we have quite a bit of effort put in with the backgrounds, somewhat enemy replacements, actually having custom boss fights. This is the first level in the competition, the low scoring one that actually has effort to put in custom music. I mean, a custom boss fight, 3 of them in fact, when most stages didn't even bother doing that. Not to mention this actually has custom music too, which is actually pretty nice. I don't mind the background either, even though it's not really totally consistent with the 8-bit graphics. It's just that everything else falls apart. And now it's time to fight Kushona, who is expected to be fought the third. For one, she has that machine gun. With that syringe of hers, she can actually drain your health and restore her own health. Plus, the syringe will actually block your shots. Not to mention she can randomly use it, so it can be a little bit difficult to hit her. Your best shot is to get her in a pattern where she fires those projectiles. As you saw there, she regenerated some of her health. And you can't hit her in the back even when she has her syringe out. At least she always travels twice when using the syringe. But unfortunately, as you saw over there, she can decide to randomly immediately use the syringe after a machine gun attack with no break period. At least she takes double points of damage. It seems that sometimes she'll only do 1 syringe attack, instead of 2 dashes. For this boss fight, I strongly suggest using special weapons, or use any tank. And I believe one of the boss fights actually has an instant dead attack too, adding to the problems. I'm doing a lot better against this boss than I expected to, actually. The machine gun attack isn't too bad, it's just the fact that she doesn't really have a consistent pattern, and she doesn't have tells to when she's going to be using the stuff like the syringe, and the delay between each attack is problematic. She's kind of like the culmination of all the problems of the stage, merged into one boss fight. But alas, Yggdrasil is done. Well, I think there's one more pathway I didn't showcase, so I will be showcasing it right now. Alright, I'm at the initial point where the green pathway meets up with the pink pathway, or continues deeper into the green path. So I'm going to go travel upwards. Also, apparently the snake pathway, or the snake room in this green path, apparently there is screen looping over there. I was having so many problems, but in fact, it was a lot easier than I was making it. There should have been an indicator that there was screen looping, because the screen just afterwards, or the section afterwards, the ground is instant dead. Another big failing about the stage, not actually showcasing where pathways meet up with each other. And you'll see another crazy one right here. This is fine, sure, but it's not really well illustrated. If all of the stage of a particular pathway, let's say green or pink, actually consistently use the screen looping, that'd be fine. But it inconsistently uses it. Sometimes we have screen looping, sometimes we don't even have screen looping. And sometimes it's only at particular areas. That's what frustrates me about this stage. Also, hitboxes can be a little bit more difficult to discern, but that isn't the worst thing about this stage. Oh no, it isn't. Let me take this ladder up here. I don't remember where this leads up to, but okay. Again, hitboxes. The spike kind of extends further outwards than what you would expect it to go. Oh yeah, and here's the teleporter. The pink teleporter for some reason. Apparently it's broken because it can't take us anywhere. At least you get an M tank for our efforts. That will be definitely useful. And we get a lot of pickups. I guess this is a secret room for more skilled players. Where is this? Oh, and that just takes us right to the beginning of the stage. That's a really big jerk move, actually. Well, I showcased the path in its entirety, I believe. The last part of that pink pathway loops into the rest of the pink pathway we saw earlier, so I don't need to showcase it. So let's get out of here. At least I got an M type by showcasing this alternate pathway. Alright, in real time, it's taken over 40 minutes to go to Yggdrasil. What a stage it was. Well, let's see what the judges' comments have to say. They're certainly going to be entertaining. And yet, Pyro gave this a 25 out of 50. This is something I forgot to mention in the previous two parts, but unlike Magmul 1, Magmul 2 scores are out of 50 instead of out of 100. Why is a good answer. But we really should be discerning or breaking down, deconstructing why, but I already did it throughout the stage and repeated my thoughts already. I will repeat it one more time. I don't think there were any jumps that required Rush Jet or Super Arrow, but there may have been special weapon usage required for usage of the Flash Stopper unless you're really skilled. The stage is really creative and cool, and I do like the overall stage structure. I mean, the way the rooms connect with each other, and the fact you can take alternate pathways and decide to loop back into other ones, and the fact that we have 3 different aesthetics, or rather different colors indicating what the gimmicks are, but it doesn't really feel like it's designed with the player in mind. And here's Angel's review. The only thing that would be discernible about this stage, if all the issues were ironed out, would be the fact that it has alternate pathways, with each with their own gimmicks, and the fact that each of the pathways will loop into each other. Clarity, fairness, difficulty curve, guidance, boss design, and consistency. That's essentially the summation of all my complaints and critiques of this stage. And Jill basically summarizes everything. This stage really requires the player to already know a lot of details about the stage before they even play it, in order to get through it swimmingly. Somewhat swimmingly. Also, the boss dialogue goes a bit too fast, but that's a relatively minor issue in regards to everything else. Music was fun though. Wow. Worse than the mobile phone parts? More annoying than Open Star OVA? Even worse than X7? That extreme too? Well, sorry Ace, I decided to go through this entirety of the stage, and I wanted to go even further by showing the alternate pathways. Those weren't even necessary either, but because I'm somewhat masochistic, and I want to be a completionist, at least show the stage in all its unholy glory. It's been almost an hour on my part too, but at least I was able to progressing at everything. Oh boy, it's time for Ace Sparks. Well, he got really famous for some essay comments or essay reviews, so here it is. I will not narrate these short comments, because I will definitely screw them up. Pause and unpause the video if you want to see the entirety and read through Ace Sparks' entire diatribe. It's quite entertaining and quite elucidating. Ace has a good point over here. The screen wrapping gimmick over here, I called it screen warping, it's screen wrapping. In the green pathway, it's not introduced in a proper fashion, it's introduced right in the middle of crossing yoga blocks, when usually it would just be an instant death pit. That was also a problem because of how the spikes could sometimes blend in with the color background, especially because they have the same relative coloring scheme. Although, in retrospect, I somehow got past it. The stage does look unique and nifty, but it's really let down by all of the aforementioned things. Also, the pink route, yeah, it didn't really have a gimmick. I was expecting it to mix in the force beams and Yoko blocks, but there was only really Yoko blocks and enemy placement. It's really the poor man's version of the other routes. Yeah, I believe these bosses were disqualified from the arena. Or maybe just the normal arena, but not the true arena. I'll have to double check that. To be fair, Ace was right about the boss fight against Kichuna, or is it Kichuna? I'll call her Kichuna. I don't mind her healing herself, but she stays so invulnerable, and she doesn't have enough tells. But she's the most doable out of the bunch, and at least she gives somewhat of enough time to react to her as long as you stay far enough away. Even the machine gun attack is not that hard to dodge as long as you're far away enough, and there is some warning. Unlike the boss fights against Cream, And oh boy, Crater. Crater was the worst, especially with his extremely damaging attacks. It certainly is memorable, one of the most memorable stages in Magmal 2, for all the wrong reasons, of course. Similar to City War, the Blank Falling stage in Magmal 1, the Quickening, etc. This was certainly something. I wouldn't say it was as bad as Mega Man 7 with all of the sound effects replaced with Flame Hyanar. That had its own issues. I like the physics and gameplay more over here. But oh boy, this is definitely one of the worst stages in the game. It's all upwards from here. But as I said, I kind of sympathize with the author because I had some same general principles when I designed my own stage in terms of looping up pathways. In some ways I would say this stage actually made the merging of pathways a little bit better, merging and splitting. But the rest of the stage falls apart. That's what makes it sad. There's so much that could be done with the stage, but it fails its potential in so many different ways. Sorry Zat, maybe in the future you can make a better level. I have faith that you can improve upon your mistakes. And reading Zat's comments in various media, Discord, some YouTube comments, he kind of rushed the stage and didn't have enough beta testers or play testers. Alright, this is the end of this marathon of a part focusing on Yggdrasil. In the next part, I'll cover more levels in Tier 2. Well then, thanks for watching and have a nice day. Toodles!